Hi, Jeannie. This is Cindy. I'm calling here from East Tennessee, from the Knoxville area. I was listening to the last half of Dr. Tim's show, and that was amazing, and I'm excited to be on this half of the show. I was just listening to what you were saying about playing some previous, I guess, lectures or previous things about healing through relationships. And I am currently having a relationship issue with my spouse, my husband. It's rather an ongoing issue. But this time I'm working on doing a deeper dive with both myself and this pattern that we have, trying to listen to him in a different way. So basically I'm hearing from him that he's feeling, you could say, disrespected by me, or like I'm not listening and doing what he is telling me to do. And from my point of view, I feel like he is telling me what to do and how to do things. I think in his mind he's trying to help, but I'm not finding it helpful. For example, what's happening right now is I'm a social worker, and I am getting ready to sit to take my licensing exam here in a couple of weeks coming up. And I think my husband's trying to be helpful, but he is asking me, did you take the practice test? And I took a practice test. It was 170 questions, and I am in the process of reviewing all of those questions to see which ones I got right, which ones I got wrong, why I got them wrong, and the explanation. So I'm going through all of that, and the other day he got really upset with me because I wasn't taking practice tests, and I was trying to explain to him what I was doing, that this is what I needed to do for myself to comprehend the information and understand it, and then I will go back in the areas that I'm weak and study those. So I guess my question is, how can I be respectful of him and what he's saying, but also honor myself? Like, how can I have my own autonomy with somebody who tends to be, I'm going to say, a bit controlling? I'm not really, I want to learn the lesson, but also have a more peaceful relationship if I can, like more respectful. I didn't know if you had any words of wisdom for me.
Michael has joined us. Michael, do you have any comments to give to her?
Oh, yes. Dear heart, you just opened such a huge, wonderful bag of worms. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Cool.
Sounds like you're ready to go to the next level.
Yes.
How long have you been doing this work? Give me a little history so I can so I know where to start to give you the best feedback that I can give you.
I've been doing this work for quite a while now. I'll tell you a really fun story really quick, but I'm 50 now, but when I was about 20-ish, I worked for a man as a caregiver. He was paralyzed from the neck down, and he has since passed away, but before he passed away, he gave me your book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And I just think that's really neat. And then several years later, I happened to find you again and be on the path. So I thought that was kind of cool. So cool. I have known of your work for quite a while now.
And have you done many worksheets from the forgiveness process, the Aramaic forgiveness process?
I have, yeah. Uh-huh.
And you've done, does 10, 100, 1,000? I had a guy just a couple of weeks ago that sent me a picture of when he put the 7,000 worksheet on top of his stack of worksheets. So wow. It's all relative. So how many, just so I have a sense, how many worksheets have you done?
I don't know, maybe
approximately.
I would say more closer to about 100, maybe.
Oh, okay, good. So you process. All right. Well, let me just kind of lay a foundation and give you the best support that I can give you. Okay. What I hear, first of all, is that you're dealing with a codependence issue. And I suspect that if I asked you the question, which I'll go ahead and ask you, how did it feel when your power person was controlling of you?
it didn't feel good. I didn't like it. I felt, and I noticed I'm feeling resentful of him when he tries to control me. And then when I go back, I feel resentful of my power person as well.
Okay. So that would be my starting point, is you have absolutely zero resentment toward your husband. You never have had, you never will have resentment toward your husband. However, you have the capacity in your carbon-based memory to structure a thing called resentment based on experience with a power person. Usually things that are power person dynamics have been going on in the family bloodline for a long time. If you went back and talked to your power person who was controlling with you, what do you suppose their answer would be if you said, gee, Mom or Dad, whichever one it was, how did it feel when your power person, explaining that dynamic, how did it feel when they controlled you? What do you suppose their answer would be? You've probably heard them have a conversation about what that was, but what do you suppose their answer would be?
Probably that they felt resentful.
Resentment, yeah. So you're probably dealing with a long-standing, genetically implanted issue of resentment. And so it's wonderful that you've got a partner that you're so attuned to, and he's so attuned to you that he's able to bring that up for you. Now the trick is that, well, again, let's lay a foundation. So I have this whole history in me, and when a situation happens, i.e. someone says, why aren't you doing this? You should be doing this. My history resonates, and out of that I construct a picture, not of what happened in my history, but of what my mind tells me is happening now. And I take that old history and I project it into now, and I build a picture, and here's the picture I build. Here's this man that, you know, I cherish and honor, and he cherishes and honors me. And here he is, bouncing off of my resentment, resonating my resentment as, you know, relationships are wont to do. This is one of the things we'll be doing in December, which we're going to do a whole relationship series when we're going to be in Nashville with our son and taking care of him at a hospital. And, you know, the bottom line, and I don't know if you've heard me say this or if you've done workshop on healing through relationships, but one of my favorite tongue-in-cheek lines about relationship is that most relationships that are based in matching bags of garbage. And those relationships the world calls love relationships. They're not love relationships at all. They're relationships based in resonance, people drawn together through their matching energies. And at first, people walk gingerly through those relationships, and they're very careful, and they do all the things they're supposed to do. But one day the stress builds to a level where a behavior shift happens. And now this person is saying and doing things that resonate, things that until now I've been able to hide from them and hide from myself, pretend that they're not there because I have this wonderful love relationship. Now, the very relationship, you know, if we continue in a relationship with matching bags of garbage and don't do our work, that relationship will absolutely, totally, completely send us straight to hell. Literally. The real hell that was being talked about in the ancient teachers, not a fiery place, but literally the acidic condition in our own physiology that literally physically burns us. And if I do my work in that relationship, that exact same relationship is the very relationship that will take me to heaven. And heaven isn't a place off in the sky somewhere. It's a place within us where we live out of a space connected to love. But as long as my carbon-based memory, my physiology holds resentment, I can't live in the space of active present love, because holding that resentment in me always sets up a field that pulls somebody in to resonate that resentment. And the idea of forgiveness is that, and you'll notice that when your husband or anybody else is doing everything you want him to do, it's really easy to be in what the world calls love, right?
Yes.
Yes. And when's the only time that you fall out of that place called love? It's when he violates a goal you hold for him, right?
Yes.
And the goal, as I'm hearing it now, is probably would be language something like, why don't you just let me do this the way I know I need to do it? Why don't you leave me alone and let me do this? Would that be the goal?
That is correct, yes.
So that's what I'd put in my worksheet in number 3. That's the goal.
Okay.
He's going to be the object of attention in number 1. You put your own name in, you start out I, and you name yourself who I'm loved. Proclaim who you are, because that's where you want to go. And then he's the object of attention, and the goal is. Now, the reason why, when he violates that goal, you fall out of love is it wasn't love in the first place. It was approval. Proof of him, and that feels like love. It's like you're able to be somewhat present in your mind and in your body as love when everybody's cooperating with you. But when someone violates one of those goals, i.e., does something that arouses my resentment, then because I'm in denial, I don't want to feel that resentment I had as a kid. I don't want to be, oh man, I don't want to deal with any of that. So I keep that well hidden, and if anybody gets near it, what I do is I hold my breath and keep it shut down. Which means when I hold my breath and keep that energy shut down, literally on an energetic level, I intensify that very energy of resentment, which means that the literal high energy wave that resonates out for me and sends a message that goes something like this. It's called, I like to call the psychic megaphone, and that is, the message goes, I have this disintegrative energy of resentment in me that is destroying the tissue in which it's stored. Please, please, somebody come and resonate this in me so that I can see it and clean it up. But when they come and resonate it in me, I literally, because I'm in denial, I use that very energy to literally build my brain's picture of them, my perception of them. And using my resentment to build my perception of them, I give them a pretty ugly face, the face of resentment. What forgiveness does, and you'll notice the core of the forgiveness process is based in canceling goals. In the Aramaic language, the word forgive is shabag. It doesn't mean to forgive at all. That's a misnomer. The word actually shabag means to cancel. So what do I cancel? Do I cancel this person? No, that would be murder. Do I cancel myself? No, that would be suicide. But in every situation, the thing that drives my pained perception, I can always cancel, and that is the goal. And so what forgiveness will look like in that situation, you're not forgiving him, you're not forgiving yourself. What you're doing is you're canceling the goal that drives your pain perception based in resentment. And when you cancel that goal, because that's the driver, that pain perception collapses in on itself. You know, there's some interesting Harvard research that says that in a time frame where literally they can measure 10,000 units of electrical activity happening in the brain, 10,000 brain cells firing, the max amount of data that goes into conscious awareness is 9 bits. Little tiny, tiny, tiny framework. And obviously, if there are 10,000 measurable units of electrical activity happening, and I'm only seeing 9 bits, something must control that process. What shuts out 9,991 bits and shows me only these 9 bits? It's my goal. So what happens when I cancel my goal is that pained construct called perception collapses in on itself. This is a piece of information that up until about 15 years ago, and I've been teaching the first century Aramaic forgiveness process for going on about 45 years now. Up until about 15 years ago, I didn't know how this worked. I knew it worked, but I didn't know how it worked. Now I can explain it. When I cancel my goal, because it's that goal that drives the perceptual construct of my mind, that perceptual construct, that 9-bit data piece, collapses. And when it collapses into its root, in on itself, i.e., the power person dynamic with whoever my power person was. And chances are there's more than one, and to some degree, quite likely, he's become your power person. And so when I cancel that and collapse it, for just, usually just for an instant at first, because the mind is so fast at shooting back, bang, 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 it's information. For just an instant, that's collapsed, and I'm alleviated of that pained perception. And they said to Yeshua, they said, well, they're kind of at this stage. If Yeshua were explaining the process, then Peter says to Yeshua, well, Yeshua, how many times do we have to forgive? How many times do we have to do these darn worksheets? Is 7 times enough? He's obviously been told, you're probably going to do this more than once. And so he says, is 7 times enough? In Aramaic, Yeshua's answer is no, 77 times 70, which isn't a literal number. I'm sure that Peter wasn't saying they're going to see 7 sevens 49, carry the 4. No, it wasn't literal. Literally, he's saying you're going to do 0 is a number of completion, or 7 is number of completion, 0 is infinity. You're going to do an infinite amount of work around this issue of resentment until you're finished with it. And each time you drop into, and one of the key processes, you'll notice a nice big letter right there beside canceling the goal is the word breathe. Because when you breathe, you literally open the veil, the barrier beneath which we keep hidden the power person dynamic that we don't want to deal with. And so as that happens, then you start to move into deeper and deeper contact, which is not Dr. Feelgood. That's why the step before you cancel the goal, you affirm that you're willing to go through the physical, mental, emotional symptoms of healing. On a physical level, as you do this, on a physical level, you're going to go back to maybe being 3 years old and feeling like you were just, maybe your power person was raging and you were being controlled by them. You're going to go back and feel what it felt like, the terror of being a child of 3, being controlled by this person who, weighs 25 times as much as you do. You're going to go back and perhaps even literally your brain is going to represent the words, the sensations, the terror, the trauma, whatever it is. The thing to get is that that's all stored information that you survived on the way in. You'll survive it on the way out. And you'll move through those layers until you get to the point, when you completed your 77 times 70 worksheets, whatever number that might be, 2 or 5 or 10 or 50 or 5,000 for you. I don't know how deep this issue goes, but if it is a generational pattern, this resentment with the power person dynamic, then you'll probably still be doing work around this a year or 2 or 3 or maybe 5 or more from now. But each time you'll weaken it, depending how deep it is genetically, how far it's gone back. If your power person is still alive and you ask them, and if your power person's power person, your grandparents still alive, if you went back, you'd probably get a sense of how deep this is. And so when you're the early adopter, it's quite likely that your power person never said, gee, let me get out a worksheet and do some forgiveness, a la first century Aramaic Yeshua. So you're the early adopter. You're the one who's going to say, okay, I'm going to take on this family dynamic and I'm going to clean it up for all of us. And that means you're taking on a pretty significant piece of work. And when you say you're going into social work, I clap my hands and applaud, because as you do this, you're going to be able to pass it on to a lot of people that you're going to work with in the future. So you're going to change a lot of lives besides your own. And I don't know whether you have children, but it'll change the lives of your children and their children and their children, and it'll change the life of your power person and their power person and their power person, who probably isn't alive anymore, but it will change their eternal lives.
That's neat.
So that would
I
be
like
my offering as to why it's worth doing it.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. I'm going to be doing those worksheets, and I'll let you know how it goes.
Awesome. And there are at least 20 different radio shows. There are many nuances to that forgiveness worksheet process. Literally, the one that we currently publish today is, well, I probably shouldn't say literally because I haven't kept track of it, but it is probably quite literally close to version 4,599. I mean, as I was developing that worksheet, there would be times where I would make, as I was learning the process, as I was starting to understand these first century teachings, that I would literally edit that worksheet 3 and 4 and 5 times a day. And I mean, making significant changes in it. And so you're seeing the end result of 45 years of work. My first worksheet I probably designed about 45 years ago. And so you're seeing, it's gone a long ways in, and you can, I don't know whether we have an app that you can use on your phone. If you go to your app store on your phone and just type in Heartland as one word, Heartland, Aramaic forgiveness, you can do the worksheets on the app, or you can download the latest worksheet and or do the latest worksheet right there live on the website, whyagain.org. And of course, from within the app, if you're doing it, in writing, and when you complete on the app the worksheet, you can save it as a PDF. But anywhere within the process, like if you're on step 2 and you go, what the heck does this mean? There's a button Jeannie's put in it, and you can hit that button and you can ask the question, what the heck does this mean? I don't know what, whatever it is, explain the problem, hit send. Jeannie will get that email. The next radio show we'll do, she'll read the question, we'll answer it, we'll discuss it, and then send you back a link to that show so that you've got access to it. But the other thing you might want to do is there are at least 20 different shows where we've walked somebody step by step all the way through a worksheet. And so a lot of the nuances, the questions that come up, you'll get a broader picture and be more empowered to do the process as effectively as it can possibly be done. And remember, as you're going through the whole thing, to breathe.
Yes.
Say again?
Yes, that's amazing. I like that you guys have the thing with the question and then it gets connected to the radio show. That's nice. That's helpful.
Yeah, any page on this in the app, you can ask the question, and we'll get the answer back to you. So.
Nice.
And
you.
if you're available to ask your question live on the show, if you've got any other questions now, if there's any piece of this that, well, gee, what does that mean? Now that doesn't make sense. Well, how does that work? Then that's what we're here to do, to empower you and support you in every possible way to be as effective at using the tool as you can be.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely honored and delighted. Any other questions or thoughts for you?
No, that was very helpful. Thank you.
Well, I'm delighted that the person who gave you the book gave it to you, and that you're here, that you're back again, and we'll look forward to hearing the resolution of some of that. Another suggestion that I would put into the equation is that it might be because. Let me talk about the opposite side of what's happening in your relationship, and that is probably that your husband has a power person dynamic that is being played out in this situation. So his will be when I say matching bags of garbage, his will be the match. The beauty of relationships based in matching bags of garbage is, yes, there is the component of being the component of love that exists in it, but it's also, we're going to be most drawn to the person who, when we exchange genetics with them, that is, we're physically intimate, that then they have access to our unconscious, we have access to theirs. And so chances are that he has the matching bag of garbage, whatever it is, like, and his might be, if I'm not in control, I'm going to get hurt, or danger, whatever might be his matching bag of garbage. And so that's what pushes him when you say, okay, honey, I got this handled. How about backing off? And he says, no, we need to talk, and I have no idea what the actual dynamic is, but that would be an example. And so it might be worth playing this show for him. It'll be available, shortly after we finish the show today. It comes up on the archives, and Jeannie will have it up as well on YouTube. It might be worth playing it so he has a sense of what's going on, and maybe enlist him. Geez, now that we're looking at this, and I want to own my part, and I want to clean it up as best I can, and the invitation can be there, although it's not a requirement that he own his part. And the first time that I did the workshop that I do on relationships, it was called Healing Your Relationships, because I thought that there were diseased relationships. And then after doing that, not too many times, I learned that, or I was shown that there's no such thing as a diseased relationship. Every relationship, especially the ones based in matching bags of garbage, are a perfect creation, because they will perfectly reflect to us, each of us, I to you and you to me, the parts of us that need healing. And so if you can enlist him in one of two different ways, or both ways. One would be, honey, I'm going to do a worksheet on you, where you're going to be the subject of it. I realize that this is my resentment, my power person dynamic, and I really want to clean it up. And I'm going to ask if you just be there, and as I walk through the process, I'll explain what I'm doing, and just hold the space, support me, hold the presence of love for me. And or if me doing this brings something up for you, then I'm willing to be the space that supports you in doing the same thing. And if he is interested, which there's no requirement for him to be, for you to do your healing work, but if he is, it makes the process a whole lot more fun if each of you are doing it. In fact, sometimes you'll kind of see an issue come up if you're both doing the work, and you'll sort of look at each other and go, oh God, here we go again. Our perceptions, the constructs of our minds, literally every construct of the human mind is a lie. And the basic component that makes it a lie is that in order for the mind to generate a construct, a perceptual construct, the content has to be there in what we call carbon-based memory, in the storage system. If there's content in the mind, obviously it's from the past. And if I'm using content from the past to build a construct that I think is the present, obviously I'm looking at the past thinking it's a present moment experience, and that's a lie. The ultimate objective of this work is to go beyond perception, go beyond carbon-based memory, or what in the ancient teachings was called the mind of man. Not being sexist there, the mind of woman, same thing, carbon-based memory, to go beyond that and experience out of that higher mind in us that was called the mind of Christ. And nothing religious about that idea. The simple fact is, if you hold a newborn child, you will recognize the presence of love that newborn is, and we're all born in exactly the same way. The world and the power person dynamics in our family systems tend to batter the presence of love out of us and lock us into a false self based in that power person dynamic. And so as one frees oneself from that past, that false self, then literally, physiologically, the mind of the active presence of love becomes the controlling energy of the cells of our body. Health improves, aliveness improves, joy improves, relationships get better. I mean, the whole game changes. And so, I invite you to consider if it feels safe enough, and I don't know, what kind of dynamic goes on between you two, but if it feels safe enough, play it for him and say, hey, you want to play? See what happens. And of course, we're 100% here to support him too if he has questions. And, wait a minute, what are you telling my wife? That's stupid. I'd be happy to have a conversation with him on the show and see where it goes.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. I will be working on this.
Awesome. Anywhere we can support you, let us know.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely delighted. Thank you for calling in. It's great to have the opportunity to have this conversation, because if there are new folks listening, it just opens a whole space. So much appreciation for your call. And if you're out there in listener land and you're listening on one of the syndicated stations where we can't see you on our control panel, if you call into the show directly, and our call-in number is 563-999-3581, you'll be listening to the show directly, and you'll be able to push 1 on your phone, and when you do, that will raise a hand in the control panel, and Jeannie will know that you want to talk to us, and she will introduce you by your area code, and we'll have a conversation. If we can be of any support, that's exactly what we're here to do. And of course, we've got, I'm not even sure what the number is now, but well over 5,000 hours of conversations just like this one, coming from 1,000 different directions, heading into the answers and the tools that come from, I'm not even sure now how many workshops we've got, 20 or so, with 30 some identified tools. I haven't even gone back and sat down and counted them up, but well over 30 different tools for how to enter into deeper levels of your own mind, of your own physiology, pull out disease, disintegrative energies, and restore yourself to who you are as a human being, and to be able to see the people around you truly, see past your own perceptual constructs and see the people around you as who they really are. And who they really are, always and forever, and it never has changed, although our perception of them may change, and their behaviors out of their perception may look pretty bizarre. The truth is, we all in essence remain exactly the same, and that is that we are, literally, as Dr. Tim likes to close out the show, you are the presence of love. That's the literal truth about you. Even if you appear to be, the worst person that's ever existed in the world, if we were to look at the worst tyrant, that person is exactly of the same nature as you are. We all come from the same source. And we all have a history that can be pretty crazy and pretty bizarre. Now, people say, that history is something that's set up by this creature out there with a red suited tail and a pitchfork called the devil, and the devil made me do it, and I have to be careful of that devil out there because Satan might get me. And that's all a pure, fantastical, baloney piece of information that has been created by those who refuse to go inside, clean up their own minds, and restore themselves to who they are as the presence of love. Satan, in Aramaic, has nothing to do with the dude with the red suited tail and a pitchfork. It's got nothing to do with some sort of a persona, a person that's out to get you. In the Aramaic language, the word Satan, as it was originally used by the man named Yeshua in his first century Aramaic language, Yeshua, a.k.a. Jesus, that word Satan means the resistor, one who misleads. And you'll notice, and I acknowledge you in this conversation we just had, how willing you were to go, yeah, that's my power person. Yep, I'm going for it. Nice work. Because most people, or many people, when I offer, well, you notice, I've been talking to you for, 20 years, and I've been observing, and I noticed that you've been through this 87 different times with 42 different people. Has it ever occurred to you that maybe you're responsible? And most people go, no, 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 no. Resistance, literally shutting the breath down, tightening physiology, and locking everything out of sight that they don't want to look at and deal with. And then, that's the first part of Satan, resist. And then, the one who misleads. And then this person now will give me the whole mislead. They've got a whole story about how everything in their life is somebody else's fault. Because by approximately the age of 4 in our particular culture, every one of us has been brainwashed into being very devout. Even the atheists, very religious people, committed, card-carrying members of the one world universal religion of blame. And it's like the membership card to that church is like it's super glued to our foreheads. It's tough to give it up. And that's always been the way it is. And Yeshua has the most precise set of tools that I know of. And I've spent better than half a century searching. I mean, you know that song, I've Been Everywhere, Man? Well, I've been on 5 different continents looking. I've been to Tibet, I've been to China, I've been to Greece, I've been to Trinidad and Tobago. I've worked with healers in the remote. I mean, I remember when I went to Trinidad, the fellow who sponsored me said, we have this native healer. Would you like to go and see him? I said, well, sure, yeah, let's go. And he gets me in a Jeep, and we drive. I mean, I was speaking in the city, but we drove out into the countryside, like way, way, way out into the countryside. And he takes me to this guy who's got literally a little hut. I don't really remember now whether it was grass or not, but it might as well have been. It probably was. I'm not 100% sure. But this little hut with a dirt floor. And, you know, I used to teach at a chiropractic college, and this native healer in Trinidad, he looked like he was in his 90s. And he didn't have a chiropractic table, but he racked and cracked my body as well as any chiropractor I've ever worked with over the last 50 years. And so I've looked everywhere. And I've never found anybody that comes close to understanding the dilemma of the non-human being. That is the human that has lost their awareness of themselves as the active presence of love. I've never met anybody who knew how to restore them. And this man, Yeshua, has a set of tools, and spent well over 4 decades now refining, learning, doing my own process, understanding those tools, and doing my best to pass them on to others. So that's what we're here for. And so if you're out there in listener land, again, our call-in number, 563-999-3581. If you call that number, you're listening to the show directly. And then if you push 1, we'll have a conversation. So, Miss Jeannie, do we have anybody out there in the phone queue with a hand up or anything happening in the chat room?
No, it is all quiet out here.
Well, in that case, then, let's go back and continue with our conversation about the Book of Thomas. And we were up, I believe, to number 63 or 64, but I actually went back and was doing a little more research, and there's a little bit more information that I'd like to give on number 61. So if you're new to the show, the Book of Thomas is one of the texts that was not canonized at the Council of Nicaea and therefore does not appear in the Bible, but it's as profound, as powerful a rendition of the teachings of Yeshua as you'll find in anything that's been canonized. And it purports to be the secret teachings of Yeshua. And it's made up of a number of just simple sayings rather than a story about. It's just, here are the core principles. So saying 61 says, Yeshua says, 2 shall rest upon a bed. 1 shall die, and the other live. And you look at that and you know, what's he trying to say? What does that mean? Well, what he's pointing out, 2 shall rest upon a bed, and then he follows that up with a conversation with character named Salome, a woman named Salome, who's talking to him. And this woman says, well, who art thou, O man? And whose son? Like, who do you belong to? You've mounted my bed. Now, I'm not sure what all that's implying, but, maybe just laid down to rest, or maybe there was something else involved. It's really pretty irrelevant. Thou hast mounted my bed and eaten from my table. Yeshua said to her, I am he who is from that which is equal. And one of the pieces that had me go back and repeat this is there's another translation where they render that word equal, and it makes a lot more sense, undivided rather than equal. So he says, I am he who is from that which is undivided. Remember the the one creator concept, rather than cutting the creator up into pieces? To me was given the things of my Father. And what he's saying here is, I come from a one source, and those things which belong to that source belong to me as well. Those things were given to me. And Salome said, well, I'm your disciple. I'm here, teach me. And Yeshua says, therefore I say, when we are undivided, we will be filled with light. But when divided, we are filled with darkness. So again, two will rest upon a bed, one shall die, the other live, and then talk about eating and whatever else happened. So in essence, what he's saying is, he's saying, I'm doing the same thing. I'm the same as you. I eat, I sleep. If they were mounted on the bed, maybe they were doing something else. I don't know. It's implied. But whatever it is, I'm doing the same as you. But I've done something different than most people. I've remembered to uncover the truth of my being. In other words, rather than being separated from that power from which I came, rather than losing the nature of that power, which is love, and buying into a false self based in hostility or fear, I've remained undivided, and I live from that. And I'm inviting you to live from that. In essence, what he's saying here is that you, like me, Yeshua speaking to you personally, were given a life. If you want to know what the nature and the character is of that life, just hold a newborn baby for a minute, get quiet, bypass your own mind, and breathe. Tap into that newborn energy, and what you will find there is that the character and the nature of our created essence is that of love. So you, just like Yeshua, he's no different than anybody else, were given a life. For those that want to make him different, listen to his words. The things I do, you can do, and greater things than these. Because I go back to my undivided state, because I go back to that connected state. The ways the other scriptures say it is, I go to the Father. He's saying, I reconnect. He's talking about your connection. And what the prime mistake that most people make is they make something out there more important than being connected to the source of their lives. That's the essence. When you do a worksheet, you'll see in brackets in step 3, the rose and the butterfly story. And I haven't told that for a while, so let me share it. Imagine we have a rose and a butterfly, and we give them each an ego. They can talk to us. And the rose and the butterfly meet, and they fall in love. They have this wonderful time together. And one day, the butterfly up and flies away. The rose, knowing that the butterfly is its love and its life, uproots itself to give chase. What's going to happen to the rose? The rose is going to die. Why is the rose going to die? It has made something more important than being connected to its source. When you or I think that, well, I think the way I'll get what I want here is using a little rage. I think maybe a little vengeance will work. maybe a little blame. Maybe I'll get out my membership card to the One World Universal Religion of Blame. To do that, you've got to give up your human life. Now you're divided. That's what he's talking about here. If you're divided. So when the rose divided itself from its source, it died. It was chasing something outside of itself and gave up its very life. And people who are suffering with your source. And to recognize that as the active presence of love, in that is the power of your healing. When you become undivided again, when you become equal, when you become connected to love again, really, truly, and you have to breathe. That happens through and with the breath. When you become connected to your source, then you become a healing force for that which is stored in your own physiology and that which is around you that is in need of healing. There's a second story that I tell when I do the Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop. And a second story, I mean second to the story of the rose and the butterfly. And that is that there's a really, and again, I haven't shared this for a while on the show, so I'm going to share it. And it's a good reminder if you've heard it, or maybe you've seen the video before. If you go to YouTube and type in Christian the Lion. Now, Christian is just the name of an animal. It's got nothing to do with Christianity. But the story behind it is that there were these two young men in London, England, who were friends, and they were at Harrods department store. Now, I assume this is something that doesn't happen anymore at Harrods, but this goes back quite a few years. And Harrods department store had a cub lion for sale, and these two guys bought it and started to raise it. And as it grew, it's getting pretty big. They lived near a church, an abbey, I guess, and the pastor of the abbey said, "You can use my grounds to bring your lion and play and all of that." So these guys would bring their lion, and they were raising it until it just got so big they, of course, couldn't keep it any longer. I mean, how do you control a lion that's developing into a full-grown cat? So they did some research. They contacted a preserve or a reserve, I guess would be the word, in Africa that would take stray animals. And they arranged to have this lion delivered to this preserve. And I don't remember exactly. They talk about it in the video, if I remember correctly. But you can watch. I mean, literally watch the video. It's powerful, very powerful. So they deliver the lion to this preserve, and I don't remember what time frame it is—a year, 2, 3, I don't know, whatever time frame it is later. They decide they want to go visit their lion, so they contact the people of the preserve, and apparently the people at the preserve are like, "No, you don't understand. You don't go out and visit a wild lion. This creature is now a wild animal. We have a collar on it, so we track it. We know where it is. But if you went out there, it would kill you." And these two guys are like, "Yeah, well, that's okay. We want to go visit our lion." So the people who run the preserve, well, okay. And they send them out. They've got a Jeep, and they send them out with a guard with a high-power rifle because they know they're going to have to kill this lion. They know precise or exactly where it is, so they, drive to the spot, and these two guys are out there. There's some hills, and they're shouting the lion's name, and all of a sudden the camera, I mean, this is an actual video. You can watch it all unfold. The camera is, panning, looking for this lion, and it comes across this lion, which is now bounding down a hill toward these guys. And I always, when I share this story, it's like, I remember the first time I watched it, it's like, going through my mind is, I hope this is the right lion. And this huge lion tears up to them, jumps up like a kitten on them, like, "Oh, my long-lost friends," and is all over them, licking on them, pawing on them. And the lion, I mean, it puts its front paws up on their shoulders, and if it stood up full height, it'd be a couple of feet taller than these guys. But it's all over them like, homecoming, a reunion. Oh, my dear friends. Pretty awesome, pretty amazing. But the more amazing part of the story, and the reason I tell this story, is because of the power of the literal conscious active presence of love. These two guys just really cherish this lion and go there in that space. And this lion obviously is connected to the same space, and they're just like frolicking with each other. But the really, to me, most meaningful in terms of learning a lesson as a human being, the most meaningful aspect of this video is that this lion's mate, and, you know, understanding a little bit about lions, the lioness is the huntress. She's the one who does the hunt and kill. So you don't want to run into a full-size female lion out in the jungles or you're dead. And as this lion is running down the hill toward his friends, his mate is running along with him. Now, this female lion would normally rip these guys to shreds. You remember in the worksheet at this stage, there's a line that says, "When I choose love, it wakes up the love in everyone." If I really truly function as the presence of conscious active love, then through an energetic law called the law of resonance, that same energy has to move anywhere that it exists around me. Now, as an example, let's imagine that I have two middle C tuning forks. And I hit one of the tuning forks on the desk. You've seen this demonstration before. I hit one of the tuning forks on the desk, and I put it near the second middle C tuning fork. The first tuning fork is visibly vibrating away and making a sound. And when I put it in the proximity of the second tuning fork also starts to vibrate. Is that magic? No. It's just an energy law called the law of resonance. When the atomic magnetic field of two structures is the same, there's an interchange of energy between them. The second tuning fork doesn't have a choice about whether or not it vibrates. It simply picks up the energy from the first and starts to move. If you function as conscious, active, present love, and you stick with that, then anybody that stands before you, because they're made of the same stuff you are, no matter how horrific they seem to be, sooner or later, that has to start to move in them. Or more correctly, instantly it will start to move in them, and sooner or later it will become strong enough to start to move at the level where they become conscious of it. With, you know, imagine you've got somebody who's raging. Sooner or later, that presence of love. Now, sooner might be the instant you do it the first time, and later might be 10 years from now. I don't know. You know, it depends how much garbage somebody's carrying. But sooner or later, that presence of love has got to break through and start to express in them. And for me, that's exactly what this story of Christian the Lion does. True story. Go watch the video on YouTube. And this female lion rubs up against these guys, and they're able to pet her like she's just a pet cat. And normally she would tear them to shreds. Hence the line in the worksheet that says, "When I choose love, it wakes up the love in everyone." The man Yeshua 2,000 years ago was a physicist. He said, "A little leavening leavens the whole loaf." He wasn't talking about bread. He was talking about critical mass in physics. When will we get enough people through the gate, choose to function, who have discovered the truth about themselves as active present love and are restored to the initial state of being that they were in before they were brainwashed into the one world universal religion of blame? That's what we're here to support. And we're glad that you're here to be part of the conversation. In just a few minutes, this show will be available on Blog Talk, and then probably sometime in the next day or two, Jeannie will have it up on YouTube. Pass it along. If this has made sense to you, please pass it along. We're working toward critical mass. Thanks for being with us. Create the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world. You're capable of giving it. The world desperately needs it.